Beyond Bent, Janssen! And Blackburn Rovers are 18 minutes away from a Premiership return.
As far as Stewart, just outside the penalty area, flips it central for David Dunn. David Dunn equalises. It just had to be. Dax corner and it goes. Glance towards goal, and Rovers have taken the lead. And Charlie Mulgrew has scored his 14th of the season.
Hi, I'm Morten Pedersen, and you're watching Rovers Chat.
Hello and welcome to the Deadline Day live stream. We're back again. I think this is the fourth or fifth time we've done it. We're 2.5 hours to go with the deadline until deadline. Obviously, not been that much of a busy day. One defender coming in, a few rumours about others, but it seems like just the one. But we're just going to cover the last 2.5 hours. Bit of a transfer window review and a chat, obviously, with Rich from the Lancashire Telegraph. So as you can see, I'm joined by Alex. How are we doing, Alex?
I'm good, Dan. How are you? It's always good to do these deadline day shows. Hopefully, for the right reasons. Rovers haven't had great deadline days in the past, but yeah, fingers crossed we keep hold of Diaz in the next 2.5 hours. But yeah,
it's I like these streams. They're we never really do too much on them, but I think we had one the other year that happened, so not too much. Matt, how are we doing?
Yeah, no, I'm doing well. It's a real pleasure to have Rich Sharp here. Thanks for joining us, Rich, and everything. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the deadline day today. Like Alex said, not much going on usually, but let's be optimistic. Alex usually isn't, but I'll be the optimistic one today and hope that we can get something going.
And as you can see, we're joined by Rich from the Lancashire Telegraph. How are we doing, Rich?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Yeah, good win last night. So it made getting up this morning to start a blog at 7 o'clock a bit easier.
No, that's perfect. And thank you for joining us today. So we'll start. How's today been, from a reporter perspective? Like you mentioned, you're up at 7 doing the blog, and it's always a long day, isn't it? But how's it been in terms of all the rumours that have been going on?
Probably a bit quieter than expected, I think. So I think Rovers are now at the magic 6, which I always thought at the start of the window, they said they'd probably bring 6 in. I know JDT's probably sat there as a manager would always want one more. So I think that was a thing when he was saying yesterday about hopefully 1 or 2 more. But I think it was always going to revolve around Ben, really. And not a great deal's happened around Ben. Well, to be honest, while there's been a lot of talk and, a few stories here and there, it's never really looked likely. So, yeah, heading into the final 2.5 hours, not expecting much more to happen, to be honest. Which, I'm opening to you guys, I don't know, is it a good window if Ben stays? Is it good news now that Ben stays because it's got to this point, or how are you viewing the Ben situation? Getting this far down the line, I think that's going to be interesting how people judge the window. Is it good that Ben stayed, or how's that going to affect things moving forward?
Well, Alex, we'll start with you on that one. So, in a rating from out of 10, what would you rate Rovers' window, taking into account that we've not lost anyone, have we? And 6 signings coming in.
Yeah, I think the main loss is coming into this summer where the contracts that expired at the end of last season and that we kind of lost even before a ball was kicked, really. So I think we've got over that kind of trauma of losing all them players already. And it's just been a case of trying to cobble together a squad throughout the summer. I don't think it's been ideal at points. I think we'd have probably liked to get the business done earlier. The fact that we lost so many key players and the first 2 or 3 games we'd had bad injuries as well in the defence meant that I think we probably dropped points in maybe a couple of away games that we weren't competitive at all, where I think we would have been a bit more competitive had we had more options to choose from. So there's that disappointment. But I think talking now 2.5 hours out, if you say that Diaz stays, you're probably going to say it's just probably a solid 7 out of 10. I think we're probably maybe 1 or 2 bodies short, but I think you could probably say that if the young players step up to the plate, which I think has been quoted quite a lot on the website from Greg Broughton, in terms of expecting the young players to fill in the gaps, where your likes of your Jacob Davenports were in the squad last season. If they can fill in them roles, then we're probably about break even on last season. And I think really this window will only be judged down the line when we actually see how the new signings do. You know, how will Britain compare to Nyambe at the end of this season? How will Hyam compare to Lenihan, for example? So all these things will be worked out as the season goes on, and I think that's when it will probably be judged. Although it's obviously the benefit of hindsight, isn't it? We shouldn't have signed him because he's not played well. But yeah, I think overall, in terms of numbers, I think we're probably maybe 1 or 2 short, but you'd have to say probably 7 out of 10 for me.
And Matt, what do you rate it? Because, you know, we all had our expectations coming into it and we all wanted certain positions. You know, are you happy with the window? What would you give it out of 10?
I think it all really comes down to perspective of the person, really. I know I'm not going to get too psychological into it, but I think, you know, you're looking at some other teams and you see Burnley here. Michael Obafemi is just broken down. We're not a team that's going to go for the likes of these big dogs like Obafemi and, you know, other players that comes to the Championship. But Blackburn Rovers, and when we get these young players in and try and build them up and get them to something, you know, Dom Hyam, if that's like one of the oldest players we've signed, it shows a lot about our philosophy that we're signing at Rovers. And I think that with what we've done so far, I think you can't really argue from a Rovers fan perspective. It's a big turnover season. You know, it's going to take bit by bit. You know, like JDT said, it's going to take a couple of seasons, 2 or 3 seasons to proper get going in the Championship and push for anything. So if we're talking from what we should have expected, I think, yeah, I'm with Alex. A good 7, 8 out of 10 is probably where we're at the minute. I think we've made some good signings. The Magic 6, like we were saying before, and you know, you can't really argue with it. Yeah, okay, maybe you're looking at some of the links we've got today with Dembele and stuff like that, and you would like to push for an attacker to, you know, if Diaz is leaving in January or next summer for free, you'd really want someone who's going to push him out of the squad, because it's not preferable to have someone in the squad who's going to be leaving in summer or next year on a free or whatnot. You want to really get the team rolling with someone in that position who's going to be staying for the next 2 to 3 years. But like Alex said, I'd go for a 7, 8 out of 10. I think we can't argue, and it's going to take time. And you know, with Diaz staying, that's the reason why he's up there at the minute. If he's left and we've got no replacement and we don't know yet, Everton may be calling. If he does leave, maybe a 5 or 6. But if he stays, 7 out of 8. 7 or 8.
That's perfect. So we'll dip into the comments. A lot of everyone who's joined, keep getting your comments in. You know, we'll feature them through the show. Any questions or anything, we'll just keep going through them. You know, we'll pick all the questions up as we go along and try and kind of fit them into the plan. So, Rich, just in terms of, you know, obviously Brereton Diaz is the one that we've all spoke about, and I don't think many of us expected him to actually be a Rovers player, you know, come the end of the window. Has there been anything actually close with him, or has it just been speculation and the odd bid that that's been reported?
I first spoke to his representative, I think it was when his option got taken up, so I was just checking that out, and they said yes, and I just posed the question, is there any chance that he stays? And it was a bit of a throwaway question, because I think I was always expecting him to leave, and the response was, well, he's a Rovers player and until somebody bids for him. And that was the case with Armstrong last year, that, you know, Rovers are in a difficult position with the contract situation, they're holding out for top dollar. And I think the way that Armstrong's situation went with Southampton, you know, obviously scored the other night, which was great to see, but he'd not scored since November before that. So, you know, making that step up from the Championship, everybody's always going to be looking at to see whether that's possible. But I know Rovers have held this hardline stance about, you know, wanting minimum 15 million. They've never really been tested, to be honest. So, you know, while it's great that the owners deserve credit for, you know, holding out and everything like that, in truth, there's never really been anything massively close. Like the Everton talk went on forever and ever. There were suggestions that was close, but it's just never really been the case. I know that there's going to even be talk this evening, but from my perspective, the club have pretty much drawn a line under it now, and he's going to be staying. And then it's just a case of where they go from here. Whether it be January or next summer, as to what happens with him. Yeah,
it's like I say, I think everyone kind of expected him to be off. It's a bit like the Armstrong one last year, isn't it? And then you get kind of the domino effect with Everton signing more pay. I think I expected Brighton to maybe come in and just constantly going around. In terms of, you know, with a few questions in the comments, is there any indication about pre-contract or anything in terms of January? Obviously, you can only sign with clubs outside of England. So is there any suggestion at all of that?
Yeah, so Ben will next. So not only will he be out of contract, he'll be 24 in April. I think his birthday is. So again, 24 is the number where we have with Nyambi as well, where you're not due any compensation. So I think that's why this window was always going to be about the Premier League. I think once the overseas clubs try, obviously we saw Nice with 8.4, like 10 million euros, and Celta Vigo were looking as well, but they've since signed somebody else. So I think it was always going to be on the onus of a Premier League club to pay the money in that window because of the situation with his contract. So if Ben doesn't sign a contract, then Rovers are left in a situation where if they want to gain any cash from him, then they try and sell him in January to a Premier League club or risk him going on a pre-contract agreement. So that's always the thing with, turning down the bids in this window. You're leaving yourself open to the possibility of losing him on a free next year and the consequences that can have. I'm sure the club will go back to him with a contract offer, and I know people have suggested stick a release clause in there, find a way, just any way to get there. But Ben's in a pretty strong position personally. He's not affecting him as a player because he's still playing good football for Rovers. He's obviously enjoying it. I know there were the stories about him pushing to leave, which he's certainly not played like that. But then you could interpret that, well, is he determined to leave because he's not signing a contract? So I get that side of it as well. But he's in a pretty strong position that he can probably have his pick. And it's only going to get harder for Rovers to agree a contract with him now because obviously he's going to be a more lucrative free agent if he sees out the rest of his current contract.
Yeah, that's it. The only thing I could see is if he does sign a contract, a release clause of some form, because, if you tie him down, you can keep rejecting bids, can't you? But if that release clause is in, I think we all know what's going to happen, don't we? That he won't be a Rovers player this time next year, and that's just something we've got to deal with. So, moving on, has there been anyone that maybe, that we've been linked with that were maybe closer than Rovers fans and know someone? Obviously Van Eck, I bet you've had 1,000 tweets about Van Eck over this window, and the rumours build and then they drop. Has there been Van Eck? Has he been any closer than we know, or is anyone?
The word I always had was that I think the club, obviously it's a different setup to the one that was there last year, but I think they genuinely preferred Vandenberg over Van Heck, whose situation was very uncertain, I think. And even now, I don't think his contract has yet been signed with Brighton. So he signed on a 3-year deal for Brighton, which is up next year. There's no option in that either. So he was left in a situation a bit like Hurst, where, they weren't going to let him out on loan unless he signed a new contract, which is where the Sunderland thing came from. So I did wonder whether they'd throw a bit of money at Van Heck, the money that was obviously there for Ahmedovic, or the lad, the Bosnian lad from Malmo who went to Sheffield United, who I think if they'd have got him, it'd have been a revelation because he seems to be having a great start to the season with them. Whether they could chuck that money at Van Heck, but the word from Brighton's always been that, they wanted to keep an eye on him and see how that went. I think they were left in a situation where Vandenberg was done. Like in Rovers' head, they were just certain that Vandenberg was done. He could obviously offer cover at right back, which then seemed to open up the chance for JRC to go out on loan as well. Kolka seemed then the backup to that, and then he moved to Turkey. So I think that's where the Mola one has come up pretty, tied in pretty quickly, to be honest. Greg's gone out there and huge contacts that he's got to get somebody who looks like they can cover a few positions as well, which at the start of the day I was looking, can you get a versatile option in to try and cover a few positions? So I think that's the way that the defensive sides worked over the course of the window, that they did always want to. They thought Vandenberg was done. Obviously, when they missed out on Ahmedovic, Davis, Hayem, I think the deal they seem to have got him on looks a really good one. So, Van Heck, I don't think was ever really much of a chance, to be honest, even though I think it'd have been first choice of the fans to get back.
Yeah, that is a good point about the completely different setup. Alex, just a word on, we just mentioned Mola then. What do you make of the signing? Obviously, one that, like you say, 10 minutes before we didn't really have a clue it were happening, and then suddenly everything kicks off, doesn't it? What do you make of it? Because obviously, like Rich mentioned, you've got the versatility and you've got a player that's still young as well, which, we spoke about adding experience yet. We're adding another young lad. So what do you make of just the full deal, really?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is that I don't know a lot about him. I think we'd all lie if we said that we'd studied him for like 2 weeks before he signed. We knew about the name 10 minutes before he signed. So I'm not going to go on a long rant about how good he is or anything like that. But you look at the basic attributes that he has, and as Rich said, he's got the ability to play multiple positions across the left side of the back line. And I think Greg went into that in quite a lot of detail on the website. He was talking about playing as a left back in a flat back four, as a left centre back in a back four, as a more of a wing back in a back five as well, or as the left sided centre back in a back, also in a back five. So it seemed like there were links to styles. They didn't seem to be real links. They seemed to be Twitter inventions, but that seemed to cover that kind of position that we'd maybe looked a bit light in. I would have to say that Pickering has struggled at times this season. I don't think he has really got back to his best form since the hamstring injury he had on New Year's Day. I don't actually think he's ever got back to full form since then. And you'd have to say that when Eden has played, he's looked a little bit shaky defensively, and he looks a bit more positive going forward. So maybe they just wanted to add another option on that side of the defence to maybe free up Eden to play a bit further forward. He's an England youth international, and obviously those only get picked usually on merit. I know there is criticism about favouring the big clubs, but I know Rovers obviously have had some recognition with the young age group. So I just hope that it's a good signing, and I hope he gets game time. And I think the important thing as well with these loan deals is that they are loan to buy. And I think it leaves Rovers in quite a good position in the sense of they don't have to commit big money now. It's almost like a preview. You can test out how they fit within the environment. Do they like the club? Is it a good fit within the squad? And if it is a good fit at the end of this season, then maybe the finance could be there to make it a permanent basis deal with an agreed fee already in place. So it's quite a low risk option for Rovers, I think. And the one thing I would say is that, we were just talking then about losing Brereton for nothing. I think what Venky's have shown over the years is they really don't care about losing players for nothing. I mean, we've just lost what amount of value is in Lenihan, what amount of value is in Niambi when they're under contract, and Rothwell as well. If you add those players up, what value are you talking about in terms of value of player that's left the building for nothing? So they've shown their hand that they really don't care. If they make a decision, they'll stick by it. And if they have a valuation and it's not met, then they don't budge for anybody. And I think the protests of the last 10 years have shown that they don't really budge for anybody. So I think that's really how it's played out.
So if we just take a look at outgoings, Rich, obviously Dan Butterworth's been the one that's mentioned today. Are we still expecting him to depart?
Yeah, I think what we're on. Yeah, still expecting that's probably the one bit of business left to go. I think he's off to League One, so no surprise, to be honest. He's only featured once in pre-season. Obviously a situation where Rovers took up his option in the summer, probably just to let the new manager have a look at him. It's not worked out under JDT, a bit like Tyler McGlaw. They took his option up as well, and he moved on. So yeah, expecting that to be one that goes through.
Are we expecting permanent a loan for him?
It was loan when I asked this afternoon, so unless anything's changed there, yeah, it's expecting that to be a lot. But again, he's out of contract, so yeah. There could always be something agreed further down the line with that one.
That's fine. And you mentioned JRC before. Is there a reason that stopped, or is that just? Yeah,
I'm not. I think that was potentially happening a bit. I think before, and then obviously Britain got injured, so I think they kept him about, and then they were expecting it to happen today. What's happened, I'm not sure, but yeah, this morning it looked to be on, and then this afternoon it's not. So I think, something's fallen down somewhere. But again, they were never looking to replace it right back. I think JDT seems to think that Hayden Carter can fill in there. Obviously, it seems to be a position where we've been used to, players filling in at left back. It seems to be right back at the minute, where we've had Buckley's had a go, Travis has had a go. I thought Travis struggled last night. I thought particularly on Lavery really gave him a tough time. So if Britain's got another couple more matches to miss, obviously that's something that they're going to have to plug. And when they brought Britain in, they obviously allowed James Brown to go out, and it was seen that JRC was going to be the man to provide the competition and the cover. But JRC just needs to play. Like, I know we got a bit of stick on Saturday. I thought he was good at Bradford. I thought he looked really fit and strong for the first time in a while. And as somebody who's watched him come through, I really want him to kick on. And I just find it unfortunate that he's had a stop-start career, both not helped by injuries, but also at the minute, just playing the odd game now, it can't be easy. So, yeah, a bit disappointed for him that doesn't seem to materialise. So I think it will just be Butterworth going out on loan.
Yeah, so just one more question before I move on to Matt. But in terms of Mark and because obviously, he's not been in the squad sometimes, and then he's not really come off the bench. He's been in the squad. Is there anything, or has there been anything in terms of him going out? I know there were mention about, a possible deal, but has there been anything concrete with Markindale leaving the club on a temporary basis?
I don't think he's particularly been, he wasn't pushing for the, to go out or whatever. I know obviously he's played a couple of games for the under-21s. He's not really seen much action. Again, I thought, you judged it on Bradford, but I thought he looked really bright. And I know quite a few fans were surprised he didn't get on the bench at Stoke, which is another situation where, everybody's calling out for more players, and you can't have it both ways, where you say, well, how come Markindale's not getting in the squad? And then you're saying, well, hang on a minute, we want more players coming in. So I think they have the 9 attackers now, Hurst come in really. So I think it'll just be competing for spots, and obviously with 7 subs available, 2 or 3 on the bench, and then 4 starting. So you're going to have two missing out. So again, probably just somebody who needs games. And I think that's JDT's approach with the under-21s, that if you're not getting in for the first team, he wants them playing, either behind closed doors games, which I think they'll continue with when the midweek games, cool down a bit. And then with the under-21s as well. So I think he finds himself in that bracket, really, that the club invested him in January. It's not, it's not the best look, really, to bring somebody in and then send them out on loan. So I think, again, they don't want to leave themselves short. So I never really thought there was a great deal in the chance of him leaving, to be honest.
Perfect. And now, Matt, obviously, I've just mentioned the attacking options there. Rich mentioned the amount of options. Obviously, there were links today for Dembele that didn't really come forward. Would you want another forward, regardless of Diaz's future, or are you happy with the 9 that we've got now? I think you're on mute, Matt. Oh, we have to have some difficulty at some point. Alex, I'll ask you that question. Are you happy with the options, or would you want another incoming?
I think it depends on, as Rich said, in terms of the number of bodies. I think it depends on the players that you'll be looking to loan out. I think you do reach a level where you say, well, would it be better if, for example, if Jack Vale had a loan spell somewhere in League 1 or League 2? Would it be helpful, even for maybe someone like Dolan, to have a loan spell somewhere, although that hasn't looked likely at all? So, yes, you could maybe look at adding someone who's got a bit more championship experience and a bit more proven quality. I think we'd all want that. But if you bring in somebody in, it has to be much better than what we've already got. Otherwise, you are looking at moving players out to accommodate that, because you can't carry 10 forwards when you've only got 4 places in a team. And this is another thing as well. If Ben stays, then you have that extra spot taken up, and if he's here and he's fit, then he'll be starting every week, and you just can't afford to offer that position to somebody else if they aren't at the same level. So if in a perfect world, I would have probably signed someone who just had that extra star quality, but you accept that they don't come cheap. Rovers actually have spent a fair amount so far this summer without actually much coming in the other direction. So you do start to think, well, have they maxed out on the budget for this season? So I understand why that deal hasn't been done, if it was ever considered.
And Matt, shall we see if we can get you in? Is it going to work this time?
Good. Should be all good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we are. We have to have one issue. It happens all the time.
I'm sure Alex absolutely brushed the floor there. I'm sure he absolutely smashed that. But yeah, no, I think the question does come down to if Diaz stays or not, really, doesn't it? Really, if we were to get Dembele in, I was doing a little research on him before, expecting maybe that we would sign him, maybe there'd be a chance. But if you look at it, he can play out on the left, he can play up front, and it kind of does take the same role that Diaz plays in this Rovers team right now. He goes out to that left when needed. He plays up front when needed, and he's going to start every game, like Alex just said. What I caught on the end there, and if he's going to start every game and we're paying the wage till the end of the year until he does leave on a free, then why do we need somebody in that role who, if we did sign Dembele, with the wage he'll probably get paid, we'll probably want him to start in the starting XI because he's a player that should be in the starting XI. He's been at Bournemouth, he's been at Peterborough as well. He's one of them players that screams should be starting for us. And if we've already got Diaz doing the same role, why have the both of them playing? I guess you could have the argument there that maybe we don't want someone like Diaz who won't be with us next year. We want someone who's going to be with us for the next long term. And Dembele would play that role and we can just see Diaz off. But, we know Diaz is more than capable of enough to do the rest of this year and play that role and do it to perfection how we want to. We saw it against Blackpool. He got the vital goal. He's already got vital goals this year for us. So I think with what Alex said there, it's right. We just let Diaz do it for the rest of the year. And then it really comes down to who we get in next. If it's Dembele, whoever it is, we just got to hope for the best, really.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I think Alex made a really good point that Diaz kind of makes it 9. If we've got, did we say we have 9 players competing for the 4? So if you've got Diaz in, then you're having 8 competing for 3, aren't you? Like Alex said, and then if that keeps getting back up, if that can keep in the way he is and keep playing, then you're cutting it down, aren't you? It's a bit like what we had, the first season back when you were trying to shove Casey Palmer in the team, weren't you? And he could never play Dack role because Bradley Dack were there. So in terms of just the winners all, we'll just take a look before we round off for the first bit. Alex, what do you make of those overall? Obviously, we did the ratings before. Just in terms of, what one player are you, excited to see how they do at Rovers? Obviously, we've seen a few of them, but is there anyone that's like that one player that, is you signing of the summer, really?
Well, after last night, the best signing of the summer is Adam Wharton, even though he didn't actually sign best new first team player. But in all seriousness, you'd have to say that for me, Dom Hyam is the best signing of the summer from Rovers' point of view. Proven in this league, statistically stands up with Lenihan as being one of the best centre-backs in the league. The Coventry fans were devastated to lose him. It was a very reasonable deal in terms of the finance. I would have liked another year on the contract, but needs must, I suppose, with the position Rovers were in. And he just slotted in perfectly last night, considering he only had 1 day of training. I thought it was a very impressive performance and just a brand new back line who'd never, ever played together. So if you bear all that in mind and you consider that together, you'd have to say that, for me, he's the standout signing, with probably a mention to Callum Britton. I think in the starts I have seen him, he has looked to be a capable replacement for Nyambe. But I think we'll judge that obviously as the season goes on. But yeah, for me, Dom Hyam is the standout signing for Rovers.
Matt, who would you have down as yours?
I think I'm not saying it's in a bad way, but I think that Alex has hit the nail on the head there with the two obvious signs. I think Dom Hyam and Callum Britton were the two that really did create excitement around the club, especially with Dom Hyam, with the consistency he's really put out there, and also the fact that Callum Britton's put in these performances for the past 2 years for Barnsley. So I think they were the two real standout ones. But I'm going to go for a bit of a positive one here, financial wise. I think George Hurst will be a big signing. I think that with this new contract he signed, Leicester evaluated him around 5 million. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere it was. I think financially, that shows that we are really going to be pushing forward these next few years. Really, I think that getting him on loan, if we sign him at the end of his contract, we'll have to see how he performs first. But if they value him at that and the option to buy, I'm not too sure. I'm sure Rich at the bottom right will probably be smirking right now, knowing, because I have no idea. But with with whatever the option to buy is, I think it'll definitely be over the 2 million mark. I think it shows the real statement that we're starting to make in this league. And, you know, you get Burnley doing 12, 13 million for Obafemi and stuff like this. But we're making our way up in the financial aspect of paying higher money for these young talents and these big players. And I think that positivity-wise, George Hurst will take us very far.
And obviously, while we're on, I can see it flooding through the comments. Rich, you've just put out that Dan Butterworth's gone to Port Vale on a loan. Is there anything on that deal that we should know?
No, I just got very worried when my phone rang then, and I was like, "Oh, here we go." It's normally when my phone rings, it's bad news. But now that's Rovers done. He's staying. Butterworth's gone. Nobody's signing. Nobody else going. So, yeah, that's everything done now. That's
perfect. And obviously, you know, that's a window done. We've kept all the deals, which is really good. We will stay on. We will, you know, we'll cover it all. We've got a few more people coming on later, a few substitutes we're doing. So we'll keep going through the stream and covering everything. So, Rich, is there anyone for you that we've signed and kind of stood out as the signing of the summer from your perspective?
Trying to think, yeah, probably Hayim in terms of. I think it's basing Rovers on the fact that they've brought in such a new structure. So at the middle of June, they had John Parker who was leaving. They'd got no manager, and since then they brought in a director of football, a head coach. They've since brought in a head of recruitment. They're looking at a head of European scouting again. So I think where people, were thinking probably there could be mass changes, I never really saw that myself. I thought potentially, things might be a bit different. Obviously they've gone from hiring from somebody in their own league, which is something Rovers have struggled to do, bring players in from other clubs who are championship. Obviously they brought Britton and Smodics in who were, relegated from that division. George Hurst is probably where Rovers are at in terms of strikers. He's somebody who's done well at Premier League 2 level. He's scored goals in League 1. I know he's obviously not done it in the Championship yet, but you want a Championship striker. We can't sit here and say we want 15 million to 20 million for Brereton, who's got a year left on the contract, and then we're expecting, somebody to sign for, peanuts the other way. So, and I think the low move of Tyler Morton, I think, with Garrett and Wharton as well, boosting the midfield ranks. The only thing I think with the squad, I think it's lacking a bit of pace. I thought the Sheffield United game where they played, with 3-5-2-3, there was an occasion where Buckley won the ball one of the few times and they played forward and he looked for Smodics and he just not quite got that burst. I think we've been so used to, I know people have the views on Kadrin, his end products and what he brought, but he had that acceleration, they had that yard of pace. Armstrong was the same. And while Brereton and Gallagher can get moving, it's probably just not that instant snap. So I think there's potentially that one area of the pitch where I would have potentially liked, just a bit more pace in the forward area. It does feel a bit, with Hedges, Markanday, Dolan, you've got quite a few similar players, which it helps if you're going to play that fluid front four where you're going to be mixing them around. But that's potentially one area of the pitch, or one attribute, I think probably the squad's lacking. But no, I think as a whole, it's been fairly, as expected. Molar's an unknown for me. I don't know a great deal about him. I looked through his stats and he's played against Rovers on the 21s, but I can't really remember him. But again, he ticks the boxes of those versatilities. So I think in terms of who left, who replaced, that's what they've done. And you then add in Dak, Hedges, who didn't play a great deal, Markanday, Carter's back. You've got young lads coming through. So I think that's where Rovers see numbers-wise, which I know a lot of people would have wanted more numbers. It was never really about numbers for me because I've got a lot of faith in the young lads coming through. So it was more about bringing quality in. And if you're picking a first-choice 11, quite a lot of the new signings would probably get in there in most people's teams, in whether it's now or moving down the line. So I think they'll certainly see that as job done.
Yeah, that's it. I think, you can go and blow all the money you want, can't you, in a window, and it doesn't always work. And you've got to get the balance right. I feel like we've done that here. Just a good question. I'll start with you on this one, Alex. If you're going to sign to play realistically in the window for Rovers, who would you have gone for? So anyone, obviously, within our realm of possibility, don't be pulling any random name out, but is there anyone that you'd have loved to see just come in the side? I know Callum Stiles, his name's been around Twitter so many times, and we got linked with him today. They said we were interested, but I think everyone's interested in a player like that. So, who would you pick for that one?
Yeah, that Haaland at City's pretty decent. I wouldn't mind him in the forward line, to be honest, if Diaz goes. But in all seriousness, I agree with Rich. I think that one of the attributes that we're missing is a little bit of pace. So any forward that brought that level of pace. I don't know a lot about Dembele, but he does strike me as that type, someone who does offer something a little bit different than what we already had. So that's why I was kind of keen earlier on in the day to see that one go through. But as you say, I think Rich made a great point, though, about the young players coming through. And I think we do have to have faith in that at this point. The academy has a great track record going back over the last 10 years, really, of producing first-team players. And really the main concern for me is, can we actually sign these academy players onto long contracts? Because we do all the development, we do all of the coaching over years and years and years and years. And then to see the best of that crop get poached for virtually no money to the big six is really, it just doesn't really sit right with me, to be honest. And so I think from Rovers' point of view, I think the remit going forward has to be to keep or try and secure these young players onto good contracts, particularly the ones that are the best prospects. You've got the Phillips situation that, as Rich said, before we started, it's on and off, and you get stories every 3 or 4 weeks about, going like a one way and then the other. That needs to be resolved. And then there's other players as well that haven't signed contracts. So if Rovers are going to go down this route of developing young players, they actually have to get these players onto long contracts so they actually have value, because we don't want these players just leaving and getting just virtually no compensation for them. So, yeah, I think I'd probably put that back to Rich. What do you think about getting the young players onto long contracts? And do you think it's an issue that they need to look into a bit more? Do you think there are young players that they're looking to sign on to new deals at the moment, like Wharton, for example, last night?
It's just getting harder. That's your problem. And there's no protection. So Rovers pay all the money to be a Category 1 academy, and they're struggling as much as anybody to keep all the young talent. So what chance have any others got, really? Jake Batty's still not signed his new deal. Everybody else of the other scholars has. Wharton, I remember receiving a phone call saying, Wharton signed a new contract, and immediately wrote a story saying it's 3 years plus an option. And then when I read 2 years plus an option, I was like, that seems a bit skinny for somebody of that ilk. But it's tough. That's your problem, that, Ash Phillips is sat in a dressing room at England under 17 level, and he looks round and there's players who'll be absolutely nowhere near Tottenham, Villa, all these squads. How much are you earning? No, I'm Ash from Blackburn on a couple of £100 a week, and these are on God knows how much. And while it's not all about money, it's he's in that environment, and is a young lad who's trying to set him and his family up. That's one thing that you've got to think from it. So, and you're left with a situation where you identify somebody at 15, 16, and they get to 18, and they're probably, and they've not quite progressed. Like Jack Vale's taken a bit of time. When Jack Vale was 17, I thought this kid is going to absolutely fly. So it's hard to predict who's going to be a world beater at 14 and then 18. So that's another difficulty that you've got. You then go the other way, and you throw money at people who are probably not quite ready. So it is a fine balancing act. But contracts is clearly something that when we speak to Greg next week, it's hard to throw all the Nyambe, Lenihan and Rothwell thing on him, because it wasn't his regime. He's inherited some of these situations. The club have been a bit better in recent years. I know when Callum Wright went, I was really worried about where they were going with the academy things there, but this mainly seemed to have been okay since. But it's something that you sign a deal, and then the next thing you think, oh wow, like Dak signed a deal, it only seemed like 2 minutes ago, and then he's out of contract next year with an option, so that you're forever counting down to your next deal as soon as you've signed one. So they've got to, that's something they've got to be aware of. And while ever they've got the wage structure, they're obviously working within their own constraints.
And I think the only way that we overcome that sorry, Dan. I was just saying. I think the only
No,
way you
you're right. Go
overcome
for
that
it.
is
Go for it.
the only way you overcome that is like turbocharging them into the first team and getting them involved in the first team and hoping that convinces them to stay. And I think that's probably what's changed with the Phillips situation. It seemed that was going in one direction, and since he'd had several first team starts, maybe the calculation about his career and his prospects in different places changes. But yeah, that's just.
But then equally now, Ash could be in a position where he start 4 championship games in a row. By the time Scott Wharton comes back fit, he could turn around and think, well, hang on a minute, I've got Ayala, Hyam, Wharton, Carter.
I'm sixth choice again. Yeah,
the new lad Mola. So you can't, you give these lads a chance, but equally you can't. He's a 17-year-old lad. Are you unsure at the time whether he's signed a deal? Because it could have been that Hayden Carter could have had to go out on loan just to try, but like move Ash one up the pecking order, and then you're affecting somebody else's career. So
yeah,
I'm glad
absolutely.
I'm not having to balancing out all these squad things, but you think about one player, and then you need to think about the knock-on effect that has on other players as well.
Yeah, just very difficult balancing act, isn't it?
I think as well, Rich, when you mention about players coming through and not looking like they're going to make it at one point, and they look really good at a young age. From my experience watching, the 23s and 21s, kind of the players I don't expect at 18 coming through are the ones that make it. I thought JRC had obviously have a brilliant time.
And I would say I'm famed at Rovers for saying probably a few years ago, Sam Barnes in 5 years will be a Blackburn Rovers captain, and then we never saw him ever, he never got anywhere near. And then it's taken him a bit of time, had some injuries. Equally, Hayden Carter, I thought he was certainly behind Barnes. And then suddenly out of nowhere, he's overtaking McGlaw. And then you're like, wow, Hayden's come out of nowhere. So it just comes out of, just people overtaking others. You have a situation as well within the academy ranks at the minute where you've got left backs, you've got Sereno, Gent, Batty, all come through at the same time, and you're like, well, how do we get game time here? So Batty had to play at centre half, ended up getting sent off on Saturday. So every year, if you're having cycles, well, it's great to keep taking all these numbers. They took 10 scholars right back. You've got Jay Haddo, Dan Pike, people like this, and you soon get to 2021 and you've hardly played any football. And Dan Butterworth's gone out today. He's coming up 23, and you're just like, wow, you just think these are young players and they just need to play. But there's only 11 spots and 7 subs, so it's hard to keep working out the game time for some of these.
I think you're saying Buckley for the 23s now. I'm never impressed with him, and then are impressed with, I'm a big fan of Lewis Hardcastle when he was coming through, and Willem Tomlinson. I know Tomlinson had a bit of stuff, but these players I always thought, well, them two are the better players in the midfield, and I thought they have careers with us, and suddenly look even Lewis Mansell's got 3 years, and what's he doing now? I don't even know.
When they played at Barrow the other year, they used every player, and Travis was the unused substitute. Jared Arlock, I thought, was just a bit of a utility player, and then he comes and JDT loves him, comes on at Lincoln, goes on a Rothwell run for about 60 yards, and you're thinking wow, there's this kid from, and he's training every day. So yeah, that's the difficult thing. And the positive thing is for Rovers, they've got these people coming through, and it's all about your expectations. Adam Wharton did brilliant, but I thought JDT was really good yesterday in that he could have easily live on Sky said, yes, we've got this kid. He's brilliant. And he just turned around and he was like, yeah, he's got lots to learn. He's got talent. That's obvious. We've known Adam Wharton can do that, but I've watched Adam Wharton play at Ewood, and he gets to 75 minutes. His socks come down to his boots, and he can barely run. And that's something that they've had to drill into him, that is off the ball stuff. So I thought it was really good from JDT yesterday, where he was on this stage, and I look on Twitter and I'm thinking I need to not drum it down because you want to say how well he's played, but just let's pump the brakes here. This kid is 18. He's had a brilliant game. He's gonna he's got everything. He's a Blackburn lad. I get it all, but asking him to do that Saturday, Tuesday every week for 46 league games, which is why you need the squad.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. That all these young lads, it's hard to tell, when I do a bit on the academy, and I say one player is going to be good, and then 2 years later they're off playing National League football, and the other one you don't rate's playing in centre mid for Rovers. It's really hard to tell. You see it with even the other clubs that come to Leyland, and you look at someone and think, God, they're a good talent, and they never kind of make it. It's a really strange one to call. We'll round it off very Rich. I don't think I asked you the rating out of 10 for the window just before you sign off.
So I'm just find it hard with the window, because you're right to include like Wharton and Phillips in that. So that's the thing I've got to get into my head is like are we just judging like the players that have come into the football club and the teams that have left? But they've covered, like I said, apart from potentially an attacker with a bit of pace. I mean, Georgia is the first number 9 they've signed in 3 years, so that just shows that that's something an area that they've not strengthened. So I certainly think 7. Only really if it had been Vandenberg, I know him, so over Mola, but then he's got the versatility. So that's the hard one for me to judge. Really, is how much of a role is he going to play, and what impact can he have? But Greg's true to his word that they said the budget wasn't dependent on Brereton being sold. That's how it's worked out. They've got 3 permanent signings in on decent deals. Morton, it looked really good the other night, and the other 2, if they can work out, could be buys as well. So yeah, I certainly think 7 because again, what have we seen really? Britain's played a handful of games. Hyam's only played 1, so it's again, you're judging him on paper and what they've done before. So hopefully with room to probably shift that upwards.
Yeah, I think we can look back on it in 6 months, can't we? Like Alex said before, and then give a rating because who knows what it'll happen. But I think 7 or 8's all around. We'll round off the first part there. Thank you very much for joining us, Rich. It's been a pleasure having you on again.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for. God knows what you're going to talk about now if everything's happened. So I wish you the best of luck waffling your way through however long you're on for. Yeah,
we'll have to see what we can do with it. And Alex, you'll be jumping off here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, for having me on the show. Always enjoy doing these. So yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Matt will be staying on, so we'll just we'll stop for about 5 minutes. Keep on the same stream, but we'll just have a break. People can get a drink, do what they need to do, and then we'll be back again. A few new guests on, and we'll carry on speaking about the transfer window. Hello and welcome back. As you can see, I'm joined by two new people. Dom, how we doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Do you like my mic?
It's very nice. And
Yeah, good, isn't it?
Scott, on for your debut, how we doing?
I'm good, thanks for having me.
No, it's nice to have you on. So, obviously, with Rich breaking the news that nothing's going to happen, we are going to cut the stream short in about 40 minutes, but we'll just have a chat, get their opinions on. We're going to be nearly the same panel for the last show anyway, so it's pointless keeping you all here. And then I can also get the preview recorded for tomorrow as well, which will be a much welcomed time break. So, anyway, what we'll do, as you can see scrolling along the bottom, if you've any questions you just want people's opinions on, you can help build the show with your questions. We've kind of covered like the best in fact, I'll ask Dom and Scott, but we'll have covered the best signing. So anything other than our best signing, even if you want, a championship general opinion. So, Dom, who's your signing of the summer for Rovers?
I think the first person I thought was Hyam because of how low of a cost he was. The replacement for Lenian, essentially. He seems like a leader in the team. Yesterday, I mistaked him for Ayala a lot on the stream because he's so he has a presence and he's so tall, and definitely feels like a championship player. He's played there for the last 2 seasons non-stop, hasn't he? So for 1.5 million, an absolute steal, and someone who we can trust with injuries, can't we?
Yeah, and now we're 6 options out. We'll probably go a back 3, which we've said so many times, and we'll keep repeating. But 6 into 3 now is really good. So I think end of the day we've got a good addition there. Scott, who's your signing other than Hyam? We'll go without Dom Hyam just because everyone's give their answer.
Ooh, without Hyam, I'm more likely to lean to Callum Britton. I thought at first, as he got the potential, because I heard a lot about his not having the final pass, that breakthrough in the attacking, and he come on and put that cross into Dak, and it just answered everyone's questions, I think. I think you're muted, Dan.
Muted, mate.
Someone had to do it, didn't they? I was just saying that the right back position at Rovers has never seemed something that's sorted for as long as I can remember watching. Well, no, you've got Salgado, haven't you, in that time? But probably since we come down from the Championship, have we ever sorted right back? Ben Marshall were one of the best players in the league when he played right back for a few months, but he were that good. It run fair to kind of shove him at right back and keep him there because he'd done that much going forward. And then, you think of Paul Caddis in League One, swapping him with Nyambe and Zifalki even last year. Duncan, feel free, just drop us a message on Twitter. We'll have a look at it. We'll get everyone recording. If anyone wants to join, feel free to do it. We'll get people in. Obviously, it is voluntary and, we're not going to turn everyone away, but we will, try and keep it at the same, I don't know how to describe it, the same level as such. But I've absolutely bottled it, to be honest. But so if anyone wants to get questions in, get them in. I've just seen on Twitter, there's something about Callum Styles off to Millwall.
I have seen that, yeah.
A few people have mentioned it. That would really surprise me. It don't strike me as a Millwall, a Millwall edition, and seems to be a few deals.
What do you think a Millwall signing is then?
Just a big useless player who lumps the ball and kicks you and does all of that stuff. No, you've changed it. To be fair, it's just someone who's just a lump for it. You can get a lump and chuck him up front or get him at midfield and get him to kick a few players. It kind of
Brexit.
It's the Millwall way. Yeah, Brexit. Describe it perfectly. So, like I say, get any comments in below. We'll keep them coming. We'll keep answering any questions. I know there's been a lot. I'll pull this one up before from the previous show. Question for you all: if you could sign a player realistically in this window, who hasn't, who would you go for? You'd have gone for Callum Styles. Obviously, Callum Styles no longer an option, but anyone you could go for. Maybe one that hasn't been mentioned in terms of, either we've been linked with him properly, like, so you can't say Anel from Sheffield United or anyone, someone that's a player we've not touched, with not a player that's not been linked. Dom, do you want to go first?
Has Haaland been shouted out? Is that a good one?
Haaland, Alex beat you to it last year.
Christ.
He did actually beat you to it, first thing he said.
Oh, you put me on the spot here. There was one. Cal Naismith to Bristol City. That is one that I thought we could have gone for, and Bristol City got it instantly. He was a centre-back for Luton last season, and he was in the team of the season. So, and he went for a free. So, I can't believe we didn't even look at him, to be honest with you.
I think, have we even got a manager by then, though? I wonder if that's
maybe
part of it. It seems ages ago, that Naismith. Yeah, I remember it happening and being surprised by it, but I can't remember when it was. Scott, who would you have gone for if you could go for anyone realistically?
It's someone who we have been linked with in the past, but actually not this window, surprisingly. And it's Ronan Curtis.
Yeah, he's good talent.
Like, we were linked with him for the past 2 seasons, weren't we? And he's still not gone anywhere.
And Gaz has just made a good point. I think you mean Alex Mowat there. He's gone up to Middlesbrough on loan, Gaz. I think that's a really good signing for them as well. So, that's the kind of midfielder I like. I've liked him for a few years, Mowat, and he was kind of always destined to go West Brom, weren't he, with Ismail taking him over there. But I think Middlesbrough have done a good job. But you look at the start to the season and they need it. They're not where I thought they'd be, with 2 former Rovers as well in the back line, which we'll avoid comments on Lenihan and Giles as well.
Oh, I was thinking who the other one was.
You're trying to think of the other?
Yeah.
You don't count Giles after that loan spell. It's that loan
The
spell.
question is, though, do you think he would have done any better in a JDT side rather than the Tony Mowbray side?
That's a good question, actually, isn't it?
I think he would. I think the full back in the Rovers side's a different setup now. They I've noticed they push themselves into centre mid when they come from full back, rather than being that full back that overlaps one of the wide men. They drive into the midfield now. I've noticed that they'll go from right back or left back, and then they'll be in the centre midfield and they'll try and pick that pass out to a wide man. So I think that suits him. You've seen him at Middlesbrough. He's been in the box half the time, and then he slashed one in his own net the other week that I don't think he needs reminded of.
You got to think that we played him at right wing for a few games as well. I seem to remember him as a predominantly left-footed. Plus, you got George Hurst, who's just come in, who's a 6'3" striker. That would be a Rudiger Stead Conway-esque partnership, wouldn't it? You think?
That was always my argument with Giles, that you look at Cardiff if you had Kiefer Moore up front, and I think any fullback who can knock down the line and put the ball in someone like Kiefer Moore, if you put that ball in the box to him, put the ball in the net, and saying that everyone at Cardiff were big, weren't they, last year? That were the way of scoring, by putting ball in box and getting corners. So I can get why he got his assist, and I think if he had a big man here who could win his headers, I think he'd have also had a lot more success. So, like I say, if anyone wants to get comments in, just keep them coming in.
Would you say that Hurst coming in is good for Galley, or do you reckon it's a bit of a threat to pushing him out?
I think it's a threat, person. I think anyone coming in up front is realistically, because we're not on set positions anymore, are we? We're on that fluid front four. So, if you're a striker who can play any of them four, you can knock any one of them four out. And a positive for Hurst, really, and a negative for Gallagher is that it's a completely new start for JDT. With Mowbray, you've known Gallagher for years. He had Gallagher on loan. You kind of get them favourites that you pick a bit more often, and that's going to be JDT's thing. We were saying on the first half of the show that Diaz is your one guaranteed starter in a front four, and then you've got 3 other positions to pick. I think it's 8 players. So some aren't even going to get in the squad, and probably Jack Vale's the one that I think will suffer from not getting in the squad, because it's kind of easy to drop a Jack Vale than it's easy to drop a Sam Gallagher out of the squad. It's easy to drop anyone. I can see Matt's back. How are we doing, Matt?
I'm not too bad. Just had to run down to the shop for me, mum. I'm sorry. I'm back. All transfers from now onwards, I promise.
Do not worry. How are we doing? Are we good again?
All good. All ready and raring to go, finally.
So
as he says as he walks off.
I know he disappears as soon as I said it.
Come on, none of that.
So if you didn't hear Matt, this is going to be kind of the final part of the show in terms of we'll cut it off after this. We'll get a few comments in, go through a few questions. If any of you three have a question, Scott posed a few good questions.
Are we doing some questions?
With no quiz today.
No.
Too busy of a day yesterday in Blackpool.
You should see the sheet of paper next to Dom right now. It's got all the transfer deadline days.
Honestly, it's right in front of me. I've got it from 1989 down to 2020.
Been swatted the whole day, hasn't he? The moment I mentioned it, I saw we were on it. Like I say, if any of you three have got any questions, that we can go over, cover, Josh Bowler off to Forest. I think that's
a big one. 4 million as well.
22 signings Forest now.
Yeah, and they're getting another one, aren't they, as well?
Yeah, Michy Batshuayi's going there.
Third signing. Imagine the team sheet that for the photo. Like you're on row E.
God, yeah.
Line 17.
But do you know what?
We don't have 2 million.
I feel really bad for the lads who got Nottingham Forest up in the first place. Like,
yeah,
they've got a full starting XI, they've got the bench, and they've got some reserve players all in one window. And it's like all these lads who have got Nottingham Forest up, they've just basically said to him, right, cheers for getting us some lucky penalties to get us up. Now you're off. Now see you later. So what was the point?
They did lose a lot of players, though, didn't they?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. But even with that, the thing I found weird was they signed that. I can never say his name. It starts with an A and ends with an I. That Awarney or whatever.
Yeah.
Then they go and sign Dennis, who should be playing regularly because he was good at a poor Watford side last year.
Yeah.
Then they got Jesse Lingard, who's been starting up top. It feels like they kind of signed. I think they signed 3 left backs as well. They got that Renan Ward in.
And they got Toffolo, Lodi.
Yeah. And I like that Toffolo as well. I think Lewis Brown's a good addition in the midfield, but they keep.
I've heard that Josh Bowler's going to Olympiacos on loan, straight away.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, because the owner.
Are we talking about Forest now? Is that what
we're the owner.
What happened in the first hour? I feel like you've been.
Welcome to the Rovers Chat.
It was Rich. Rich comes in, and everything's kind of bubbling away. There were rumours of a few stuff might be going on, and then Butterworth goes, and bam! The switch has gone. It's
wait.
I
changed things.
Yeah.
I honestly, I wanted to jump in and say something, and then Rich just went, Butterworth's gone to Port Vale. There you go, Dom. I'm sure you're happy, but Butterworth's gone to Port Vale, and that's it for Rovers now. That's it for deadline day. And I kind of just sat there, and everyone was looking at me because I was just so quiet, and I was just like, what do I actually say now? Because there's nothing else to say. We've done. We've expected
this storyline all summer.
But we've expected at least 3 or 4 signings in today. All these rumours, Dembele, this, that, and you just think to yourself after all that, we're done now. Our last deal was Butterworth going to Port Vale on loan. What kind of transfer deadline day is that?
I think it's. Do you remember the Leeds one? When Leeds told the fans to stay up, and then they got rid of Dominic Polion and Matt Smith went outdoor. Yeah, we could have had one of them. We could have had that. Don't bed yet, and then Diaz holding up the Everton shirt.
So are we saying that
you'll see Dom adding Butterworth's name to his little deadline list now?
Oh yeah,
are we saying this should be the headline of the actual video, shouldn't it? Because it's the only thing going on today. Surely.
You can keep Dom Butterworth out of it.
Dom's got a strange addiction to Butterworth.
It's on my back shirt. Right. You could argue, right? You could argue that Port Vale isn't even a place, so we still don't know where he is.
But the thing is, right? Dom showers with the same shampoo that Butterworth does, the same body, the same whatever Febreze when it comes to the room. Everything that he has, he makes sure Butterworth has as well. It's unreal.
Absolutely.
It's loyal. He's loyal. A loyal fan, if you ask me.
If I pan my camera slightly to the left, I've got Butterworth in a little shrine in the corner. It's a bit worrying, if anything. But
he's already got the order on. He's got a day delivery on the Port Vale shirt for next year with Butterworth on the back. It's quite impressive, actually.
Yeah, he's the new Tom Pope for Port Vale. So
Tom Paul, grow
He
up.
definitely researched that as well. He definitely researched that. There's no way he didn't.
No, he's a top scorer for Port Vale of all time. That's I think.
There you go. That's research, that.
Wow. I'll research it now if you want.
So, where do you lads stand on Schmodix?
Yeah, that has been a bit of the comments actually. This show about Smodits.
I think you know what? The first 2 games we thought to ourselves we got an absolute gem in, didn't we? And then recently he's kind of just shown that he's not up to scratch with the championship fully yet. I think personally.
Yeah, I don't think he's had a solid 90 minutes, has he? And I think that he's yet to prove. I think Peterborough were sort of happy that he was leaving almost for the amount we spent for him, 2.5 million. We were happy just because we were signing someone, and I think at the minute it feels like one of those Christmas presents that we were buzzing at the time.
Yeah, but
yeah.
And down
the line, we're like,
Christmas.
but I think his price tag does raise the expectations of him. We always knew he was probably going to be a championship player. Maybe not one that, because it's going to be him or Dak, isn't it, in that position? And Dak is clearly a better player on the ball. Whether his rust at the minute shows he can be a consistent player, we can't trust his knees. But Dak ultimately is a better player than Smodix.
Well, if you look at it here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players we lost on a free transfer. Like six like squad players as well that we've lost on a free transfer. You've got Bradley Johnson, Harry Chapman, Nyambe, Lenihan, Rothwell, and also that Greek goalkeeper who never really got in the bench above pairs because, whatever reason. But you look at that and you think to yourself, who we replace Rothwell with? Let's say Schmodix. Can you really say that Schmodix is up to scratch with Joe Rothwell? Well, personally for me, I mean that's a question for you guys. Is Sammy Schmodix Joe Rothwell quality? I mean, so far, not really.
Go on, Don.
I think Scott should answer this one.
No, well, it's odd because Joe Rothwell was always consistency was always his problem. So it's whether Schmodix can find some consistency. I was excited at first because I thought, how many times, like last season, did we sit there after a game and go, oh, we really missed Bradley Dack in that game? And I thought, is he going to fit that role while Dack's not fit? And he's not really come and set the world on fire, has he?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
exactly.
I think the peak of Rothwell is tenfold of the peak of Schmodix, but it's just Rothwell was lost in so many games. How many games do we think Rothwell? How many months did we think, especially the last 6 months? He just wasn't a Blackburn player.
I think that's it. I think after January, that's where Rothwell lost his shine. Really, he knew.
Is that a sign of a luxury player? Like one of them players that is up for the task on a Mesut Ozil at Arsenal. I'm not comparing it, but it's sort of like that sort of standard of a comparable. I
think
for Blackburn.
You mentioned with Rothwell. I know it's a bit like the Brereton thing. I know Brereton had his good year last year, but you've got to take into account the full time at the club. And Joe Rothwell wasn't. I think only last season, that first half of the season, he was what we needed. I think the rest of the time he lacked end products. He needed all that. You've got to give him. I think comments are saying as well that you've got to give him time as well, haven't you, with getting into the squad. Smodix is I think he's a completely different asset than Rothwell is. I think with Rothwell, you had, like Don mentioned, he could have his really good games at times and he could have all that, but he'd gone missing a lot, Rothwell. You can speak about that first season when he didn't really. I think he had 1 assist, 1 goal involvement in 20 games, in the equivalent of 90 minutes as well. And I think that's what we've got to remember, that how many of our signings have actually hit it off straight away in the last few years. Because Gallagher's, I know he's had goals in the season, but he's not really had a wonderful season. Adam Armstrong had a poor first permanent season in terms of goals-wise. Joe Rothwell, 1 assist, like I say, in 20 games. How many of us actually hit it off straight away. Because I think that's one thing to look into, that Rovers sign a player and it's never, I can't remember last time we had a real impact in the first season. So no, maybe Bradley Dack, obviously Bradley Dack in League One were kind of the last time I can remember someone coming in and straight away smashing everything going forward. I don't know if there's someone else. I'll have missed someone that, you know, maybe a defender on loan, but in terms of attacking wise, I can't think of anyone we signed that's actually hit the ground the first season, unless you can pick someone out.
No, well, there isn't, is there really? And I think that's it. I think that's why, as bad as it sounds, and I pick another signing out now, I think obviously he's a young lad coming from Leicester, but I think that George Hurst ain't going to do any good because there's so much pressure on him now, because we need that born goal scorer up front. We need that number 9 who's going to get 3 chances in a game and score 1 or 2 of them. And the poor lad's come in now expecting maybe Dembele or someone else to come in, thinking maybe that he'll have a bit more, like, less pressure on his back. And now everyone's looking at him, and you know he'll probably be on the bench for a bit. But when he does come on, all the pressure's going to be on him to be doing all the goal scoring. Because let's face it, you know, you can say what you want about Diaz. Yeah, he's brilliant, but he's going to be working the rest of this year knowing he's getting a paycheck and then go somewhere else for a bigger money. So you don't know how professional he's going to take the rest of the season. You know, we can sit here and hope that he's going to be professional about it all and play really well for the rest of the season. But if he really wants to, if he wants to, deep down, he could just play the rest of the season and play like, he could play rubbish, he could play however he wants to, because it doesn't matter. He's going somewhere else at the end of the season for a bigger paycheck. Now we've got these young strikers, young forwards in now, and we're relying on these 23 under-year-olds to try and do something. I think it's just calling for disaster up front. We've got this back line sorted, that's great, but we need an experienced striker of some sort forward who's championship well known. But like Rich said before, we can't ask for 15 million for Brereton and then try and get someone for peanuts the other way. So we'll see. I just can't see us scoring many this year. I can see us conceding one or two now and then. We'll have a good defensive record, but what can you do when you're not scoring anything?
I think our issue though, how much does a championship proven striker cost? Because you look at Brereton, who's not championship proven, with 1 year left on his contract, we're asking big money. You think of all the strikers.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I think a lot of that is to do with his chubby call-ups as well. He's international.
I think part of it, you've got to pay. You pay to get goals, because Everton need goals to stay up, and so the Fulham. I know Mitrov's probably going to have a decent year this time around, but you consider that there's not many out there that will do it in the Championship. Look at Rovers every year that we signed. You know, we took a Danny Graham that was playing really poor, didn't do anything up at Sunderland, really lost in his ways, and we kind of made him become, you know, this striker that we grew to love. Adam Armstrong had never done it at Championship level. Even when we bought him, he hadn't had a good year at Championship level. You know, he struggled with Barnes. He were at Bolton as well in Championship.
Bolton, yeah.
Yeah, he struggled. Brereton hadn't had that good of a year. Yeah, he showed promise at Forest, but he never really, you know, I can't remember last time we signed even Jordan Rhodes hadn't done it in the Championship, had he? Because he were a League One striker that we kind of pulled in, and he just put the ball in the net every week.
If you look at it at Championship level, at Blackburn, he was way better than he was ever at Sheffield Wednesday, really.
Yeah, and this is it. You've got to the situation. Go on, Scott.
I think the thing with George Hurst is, I think it's all going to come down to, like, the big thing between him and Galley. I think the big thing will be, is his positioning awareness better than Galley's? Because how many times do you see Galley jump up for a ball and then it goes over his head?
That's part of it. It's, you know, we'll learn with Hurst about how he goes in his game, and I don't think any of us can claim to have seen much of him, if anything.
If you want a bit of intel with him, so I'm a good mate with this Pompey fan who does his page, and I texted him. I went, "What do you think about George Hurst?" And he went, "The first start of the season, he didn't get a real run in. He was always second choice there, always. And then their striker got injured, and Hurst got his call. And whilst he was there, I think he netted 15 times and got like 3 or 4 assists or something like that. And he was saying, but when he used to come on at the start of the season, he used to get 5-10 minutes each game, and he showed nothing. And he said the second half of the season, you saw a different player. And he said it's the same old situation. It's a classic striker situation where you want to catch him when he's consistent. You want to catch him when he has them good run of games, like we did with Diaz last year, and that's it. It's the same with Gally. When he's got them run of games, he'll have a good 3-4 games where he's scoring a goal, getting an assist, and you think, you know what, Gally can do the job. Then afterwards, there's 3 games on the bounce you lose, and he's not done anything. Then you're crying out for another striker, and it sounds like the same type of player. And you know, is it a step forward? Is it a step backwards? Or are we still in the same position, but just with an extra striker that does the same now? You don't know, do you? And that's where it really comes down to. We just need to find that one striker who's consistent, you know, who can get a goal every 2 games, you know, at least something. And at the minute, we're relying on is Diaz, and we need more than that, especially with next year going into the unknown of having that goal scorer taken away from us.
I think what you'll find, though, when you mention the minutes is every striker's like that, aren't they? And every player is, you know, even Butterworth didn't do anything on his starts, but when we started bringing Butterworth on and you were giving him 5 minutes at the end of the game, I can see Don lit up.
Yeah, Don's grinning already.
But when you give him 5 minutes at the end of the game, you can't expect anyone to do it. And that's what we found even with Diaz, you know, and Diaz didn't get a run in the side. If you're coming off the bench 10 minutes every week, you're going to be, it usually takes a player 5 minutes to get going. And then you're already 5 to go. And then usually when you bring a striker on, means you're behind in the game. And if you're behind in the game, then you end up start lumping it up and you're trying to knock it down to someone. You don't play your little passing football, do you, that you'd play in the first 18. That's part of the issue. If with Hurst, I think we're going to have to be patient because, you know, you mentioned with a Pompey fan saying that he didn't do anything that first half of the season. Rotherham, he were off the bench every week, so he didn't do anything. We've got to give him that time. And, you know, it could get to the stage where he's 5 or 6 games in and he hasn't scored if he's going to keep coming off the bench. But if we can get him, he's going to start at some point, isn't he? We're going to have to start him because we want to see whether we can pay that money.
Like you were saying last time, Dan, it's loan privilege, isn't it?
Yeah, that is. What were you saying, sorry, Dan?
What sort of striker is he? Is he a target man? Because he's 6'3". So
yeah, from the look of him, he's.
So he's not a Gallagher-esque, is he? Essentially, because Gallagher is more of a. What is he? Is it sort of a?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, Gallagher is a lot better defensively than probably George Bush would be as a striker. But I know that's not what you were looking for as a striker. But I know Gallagher was more of a right winger at some point than a striker under Mowbray, which is probably the way we played because we played an inverted striker. But if we're going to play a 3-4-3 under Thomason, then it looks like George Hurst is going to play up front more than Gallagher, isn't it, this season, if we're going to play that sort of system?
Yeah, that's it. But we haven't really had one over this because Diaz has always played off the left. Jack Vale's started twice this season because he's in the league anyway. So we've got to consider. I think Hurst, he'll get his chances. He'll probably start that West Ham game, won't he, as well in the cup before we play Burnley. Yeah. And I think that's your chances. You know, if you do well in the cup, if you do well in everything else, I think that's where you go at. Just a few comments will come up. In terms of this one, I think we'll cover this in a video. We'll cover the best 11. I've got a few plans to cover that in terms of an actual video of when everyone's fit, watch Rovers best 11. So we won't spoil that one. We'll save that for the other video. You can check that out. We'll look at this one off topic, but if everyone's fit on Saturday, who starts? Not necessarily the best team, but in terms of the way everyone's played in the last few games, you know, like you just go like we picked the team on the preview, but say everyone's back. Obviously, I think with that one we'll keep Callum Britton out because I know Rich mentioned Callum Britton went in, and we'll keep Smodics out because he said he went in. I'm not too sure what Gallagher's situation is at the moment.
As far as I know, he's out for a few weeks.
Yeah, that's perfect. So we'll keep them 3 out, and we'll assume everyone else is fit.
That's Gallagher. Gallagher's out for a few weeks.
Gallagher.
Yeah, so we'll keep Britton, Smodics, and Gallagher out. Who's your best 11? Don, we'll start with you. Who would you like to see us line up with? Obviously, heading in Saturday. We're only 2 days away.
No Butterworth up top, Don, by the way. He's gone.
That's what you think. We'll go with Kaminsky in net. Is that a rogue shout? We'll go with Hyam. Is Ayala free?
Are we going Hyam at right back?
I'm going for a back three. Is that?
Oh, back three.
Oh, mate, you've been caught out there.
Yeah. Is Ayala?
I'm not sure on Ayala. I don't think he kind of just said he's injured. That's it.
Right. We'll go for back four then. Travis right back. Hyam, Carter. I mean, is it any difference what it was? Pickering left back, Carter at centre back, Wharton, and I mean, we played so perfectly against Blackpool. It can't be any different, can it?
It's
I'm
just
naming the team, aren't I?
It's resting players, isn't it?
Maybe Buckley instead of Morton.
No, Morton's so good.
I just think he'll save him. I think you've got to consider we don't play midweek, do we? We've got a week off for once.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit of time to rest players then, but then a 3-game week coming up before the dreaded international break. Chris has come up with. Sorry, Dan, you want to finish yours?
Yeah, I think maybe the only potential change I'd put Hurst instead of Dolan.
Is that Purloin?
Pixie.
Pickering. He always got called Pixie at Crew. Right. So it everywhere when he signed. I think that's a good shout. Is that the thing you went for, Dom?
Hurst is a shout. I think with Hurst, with that so-called option to buy, however much it is, less evaluating him at. I think Hurst has got to get a good run of games this year. I think there's no doubt about it. He'll get the loan privilege where he'll play about at least 20 games a season, whether he plays bad or not.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot less of Jack Vale, personally, now. I think we mentioned on the show, you've got 9, so you'd start Brereton every week because that's just what'll happen. Then you get Hedges, Dack, Dolan, Gallagher, Smodics, Vale, if you put Vale in that. So that's 6. I'm missing someone there. Hurst, 7. Markandy. So you've got 8 to pick from. 3 positions left to pick. Then you could have 3 on the bench max because you could say, yeah, but someone will fill in centre mid, one of the attackers. So even if you put 3 on the bench, you're missing 2 out of the squad. And we've seen Markandy, it's happened to a lot this season. He's been in the under-21s. I think Jack Vale will go back into the 21s a bit. We're going to get an injury, aren't we? So that's one thing to consider.
It's like, do you know them like Cascale and cider places you go to, and you've never been to it before, and you walk in and you see all these nice ciders, nice ales on the wall. It's just, which one do you go for? I'm sitting here thinking, who do you start up front right now? Because it is. You can shake your head.
Go on, carry on with that analogy.
No, Dom, you come out with some outrageous stuff. Let me have my moment, all right?
Okay.
Who do you actually go for up front right now? Because I know it sounds bizarre, but like we were saying before, we haven't got anyone proven up front, and there's so much quality there. Who do you pick?
Who is the strikers? Are they the stouts or are they the dark ales? What was
I think I'm going to go for the cask ales, definitely. I think they're the ales. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I don't like you, Dom, anymore.
I'd say the more blondes or milds would be the strikers because they're a bit more like a luxury.
Yeah.
The sort of the gateway.
You know a lot. You know too much. I don't know.
A bit more of the older age will be the dark ales, won't they?
Do you know what? I'm going to be the optimist here. I'm going to be the optimist and say that now that Brio's not going anywhere, then he might actually sign a new deal.
Do you think we've discussed this?
Be the optimist.
Say that
to
Alex, and you'll get the worst headache.
I think the issue with Brio signing deal is you look at January now, and he knows he can get a pre-contract if he wants, and he's at summer and knows he can get a move, unless he has a shocking few months or, God forbid, an injury. Then he knows he's set up to go a lot of places, doesn't he? He's going to be an attractive proposition when he's free in the summer, regardless, and whether that's a Premier League team that was up, or even if a Championship team, a Premier League team that come down went for him. He knows he's got that option. He knows he's going to get a move, doesn't he? Unless he has an absolute shocker, and he won't have a shocker because he'll get enough games this season to put the ball in the net enough times that his numbers look good regardless. What's he on now? Is he at 3 at the weekend or 4? I can't seem to remember.
4, weren't it?
Is it 4 and 7? So
I think so.
4
yeah.
and 7 in the league.
At the end of the day, Diaz knows he's going to get a big pay package, no matter what, when he leaves at the end of the year. Simple as that.
The ball's in his court, and that's what it's going to be like. And I think we all know as fans that getting someone into the club's a real way of getting a contract for a proper player like that's hard, because everyone, agents get in the ear, the media get in the ear, even social media will see everything that goes on. He's not going to be out of it. He'll see everything that happens. I bet you get asked time a Rovers fan sees him about signing a contract to stay in, all of that, and it's hard that he's a lot so young, and he's got family here, he's got a kid on the way, and his family life's going to be so different in a year's time that who actually knows where even he doesn't know where he'll be in a year's time, let's be honest, and he probably won't know 5 months down the line, but we've got to enjoy him while we've got him. And I think this is the point from Abby in terms of,
as in, didn't we reject a second bid from Fulham for 10 million?
Yeah.
No, so the rumours that Fulham bids it, and then he got another bid that weren't much off that big. The biggest one we've had, by the sound of it, Everton with 12.
Would you have taken that though? That goes to all of you. Would you have taken 12 million and ran with that?
Not now. I'd have taken it if you could get 12 million in add-ons 2 weeks ago, and you can go out into the market and get a striker in. And I don't mean a haste. I mean pay good money for a striker, or even a really good loan from the Premier League. If you can get that, then yeah. But when you're on your last day of replacing him with really hard, with 3 hours to go, because you either go to a club and the club say, well, you've got 12 million for him, so why don't you give us 8? Or you go, and then they've got to replace him, because if you're paying 8 million for a striker, it's going to be a striker that's a good striker for this team that they have to replace. So unless you then go into the foreign market because they've got extra time, but then how good are these foreign strikers coming in? You've got all that stuff to balance on the last day. I think 2 weeks ago we'd have accepted 12 million plus add-ons.
I think personally we should have just done a player swap with Anthony Gordon. That would have been preferable for me. Anyway.
Well, he's another one they relied on, weren't it? And I think it's that domino effect. We spoke about it. Me, you and Donna spoke about it all the time, that the Armstrong deal last year was a perfect example. One transfer kicks it all off. It happens every window. You see it even with the big clubs. One striker goes somewhere and it goes the full circle. And it kind of hasn't happened. It's been one of them transfer windows that I expected Watford to have none at front 3 left by the end of this window. And they've kept João Pedro, they've kept Sarr. And it's kind of the story of everyone, isn't it? That whenever they go for one player, that's when everything starts kicking off. But it's not actually happened this time. And, we still got him. I don't know what the club thought had happened. I think the club probably thought they were gonna be fielding off some bids. And to be honest, Rich said himself that there's never been a stage where it's looked like it's going. We've not even got to that, which is kind of a signal with everything going on. Yeah, and I'm sure I saw today that there's been a lot of money actually spent in the window. But kind of, how many Championship players have left for big fees this window? Because usually
did Cornet leave for anything good enough?
Yeah, Cornet were probably your biggest one, weren't you? That
17 was it?
And that's kind of, we say, and Dennis went, but you say we're like, João Pedro, I think, could be everyone's choice from the Prem, from the Championship. I think Pedro kind of the number one that everyone kind of wanted. And then you look at Ismail Assar has been linked with everywhere, hasn't he, for the last however many years he's been at Watford. You got Brereton, and then who else is there in the league that
Pirro
actually want? Yeah, Pirro. I know Obafemi Burnley bid for him earlier today, but there's not that many. Even Burnley don't have a striker that can go out and buy, do they now? Because you won't go and buy Jay Rodriguez if you're a Prem club. And I think for me, that's where everything lies, that the domino effect's just not kicked in. 2 weeks ago, one transfer could have happened, and now we're speaking about a big side, wouldn't we? In terms of this one, Joel, with Maupay, I just think when you're in Lampard's situation, you need a striker, don't you? You need, even with Maupay, you need someone else who can score, and I just think that you've got to bolster your squad.
Different player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say
Maupay he's a poacher, isn't he? Maupay. The Brereton isn't. He's an inverted winger. That's what I'd say to that.
Yeah, I think as well. If you see it at Brighton, Maupay was getting, it was changing every game between him and Danny Welbeck, because he's one of them players that offers you something different. Like you said, Diaz has got a completely different game that Maupay doesn't, and some teams you play against, especially with the position you are with Everton, you've got to change that the tactics up sometimes against these smaller teams, and sometimes when you play in the bigger teams, you're going to put the likes of Maupay out, who are going to score the chances to get. But then when you play against these lesser teams, you need more energy pushing, and you've got this dribbling ability of Diaz, you're going to play him. So I think Everton, really, if I was in Lampard's seat, what the position he's in, I would have been pushing for Diaz a little bit more than he actually has done. But, what has happened now has happened.
Yeah, that's it. We don't know the ins and outs, do we? We're not sat in the club, so it's just a go. I think we'll round off soon, but the question I wanted to ask Dom and Scott, since they went on the first bit, we'll start with you, Scott. What do you make out of 10? What do you rate Rovers transfer business? Obviously, you've got to factor in. The real question is, have we filled them slots, isn't it? So what rating would you give it out of 10?
I'm going to go one up than everyone else, and I'm going to say 8 out of 10.
8, and why is that? Why have you gone for 8? Why have you gone one up more than the rest?
I just think that some of the ones that we've brought in, like Hyam, I mean, for the money that we brought him in, it's an absolute steal. Like, if you think he's gonna be the sort of Lenihan the replacement, and we brought him in for 1.5, and other deals that we've done, and what I really like is most of the loans by Tyler Morton have all got options to buy, so you're not being stuck on that same old process as we've been stuck on for years, where, like with JP, you fall in love with a player and then he's gone.
It's a really good point. I think that's the massive thing for us, that George Hayes scores 15, we sign him, don't we? Even with Armstrong, we had to mess around bidding, didn't we? We don't have to with Hayes. We can just pay that fee if we want to pay it. We don't know what it is. Out of 10, transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, I reiterate what Scott said just then. The Hurst and Mola signings of being an option to buy is such a low risk. It makes all the sense, doesn't it? And Mola being a relative unknown, he could be a world beater, couldn't he? And I don't know what the option to buy fees are for the two of them, but I'm assuming they would have been in there in case Diaz was going in this summer, so we can actually buy him. But rate the window. Mark, this is my dad joke. Are you ready? Is it a single, double, or stained glass? I don't know. It's I'd 7.5. I'm going to go 7.5.
I'm genuinely lost for words with it, which says a lot. I think on the note of that bad joke, I think we'll round off there. We'll wrap it up. We was obviously going to stay on, but typical Rovers, the 1 year we plan everything to get on. Last year we had to jump on really late and decided to do it, and then we ended up being really busy till deadline. We do nothing but.
Although I have to say, I think it's credit to JDT and Greg. It's got to late on in deadline day, and they've just said no, we're not selling now. Rather than putting ourselves in a position where we could sell him and not get anyone in to replace him, they've just said no, you've missed your chance, and fair play to them.
No, that is good. The one thing we'll always say about the club is they'll hold out, won't they, for money. So
they don't need money, do they? The Vinkies. That's the thing. They never need money.
No,
they're worth $2 billion, aren't they? That's the The club might need it, but the owners don't.
It's the thing we'll always know about them. They'll always reject stuff. Matt, how are we doing? You've been on for an hour and 40. I can feel my legs are getting a bit numb. Sat here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you. We've heard you for a bit.
Sorry, that was really loud. I thought you couldn't hear me. Yeah, no. You know what? As soon as Rich said about 20 minutes in, we're all done for the day. That's when I was like, it's going to be so long. I was like, Dan, why have you got me on here still? I thought we brought Rich on for a bit of positivity. We're about to sign 3 players. Let's go. What a day. And yeah, Butterworth's gone. Yeah, done for the day. And I was like,
done. To be fair, when he nipped off then, when he nipped off on the phone, I thought, God, Diaz is off. I thought that right. And I saw what comments coming in. Everyone was saying, Diaz goal. And I thought, it can't be this late that it kicks in. But that's it. With an hour and 4, it's a long stream. It's felt like a long stream since nothing's happened. Thanks to everyone who's joined us. We've had about 100 viewers all stream. Kevin Bradshaw, what have I missed? Butterworth's gone out on loan, and that's it. And that's genuinely been these.
Kevin showed me a couple of players yesterday that I didn't know about, mugged me off a couple of times. So shout out to Kevin on the stream yesterday.
For mugging you off.
Yeah, for my lack of knowledge.
There we have it. Well done, Kevin. Keep doing it when he's on again. Thank you very much to everyone for joining us. Matt, thanks for being on.
No, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure to be able to sit down and talk to Rich and obviously yourself, Dan, as always. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to doing more. We've got plenty more things coming ahead for the season ahead anyway, and I'm looking forward to being part of the team for the 5-year deal I've stuck down to.
5 years? I don't remember signing that. Dom, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, why have I only got a 1-year deal with an option of a second? Why was?
Because we've fractioned now with these deals.
Dan
we'll talk in the background. I'm always glad to be on. I was glad to be on the stream yesterday, and I mean, even though we didn't talk about much other than the players that we've already bought, it's always good to be on.
Hey, Dom, before we move on, do you remember yesterday with that when you got that comment from Little Space Dragon to remind you said 1-0 from the start?
Yes, yeah. Is that you?
Me off my girlfriend's account. Don't worry about it. I'm there for you. You can shove that in Dan's face. Don't worry. I'm there for you.
And Scott, thanks for making your debut.
Pleasure to be on.
So no, it's perfect. And you should be on a few more going forward. So we'll keep. If anyone does, we had a few questions. If anyone does want to come on, drop us a message. I think we might look at doing a bit after games, getting a few different opinions after games, because we see it at games, don't you? What you think happened in the game isn't what the guy in front of you thinks. So come along, drop me a message on Twitter, Rovers Chat _ We'll try and get people on as we go through. As we go through the season, especially with how many games, be nice to keep rotating the voices on it. But until then, thank you to everyone for jumping in. The last thing that I know Dom and Matt are gonna enjoy, I've seen a comment from Awesome. All I'm saying is there's a link in the description. You can go and click it. You can go and vote. It takes 20 seconds. It goes through. I think it ends soon as well. We'll get the votes in. We'll see if we go. If we go, we go. And if we don't, we're not going to stop doing the content, so it doesn't matter regardless of if we win or get to all then.
Come on, Dan. Where's the positivity?
Dan,
where's the positivity? We're going.
Have you got a certain award that you need to show us at some point?
Oh, I wasn't going to mention it, but if you're going to bring it up again,
where is it?
I'm going to bring it up again. I have to knock it down before people might have heard it.
In front of your face. That's a better view. There we go. Thank you very much. That's good. Yeah.
People might have heard it before. It started falling as Rich was speaking, and I had to kind of whip it off and get rid of it. So
I kind of had to grab it and then show it to the camera and then put it back off again, didn't you?
But that's where we're on. Thank you to everyone for jumping on. It's been a pleasure again. Remember to vote. Voting actually closes on Sunday, this Sunday, so get your votes in. It is my... I'm a bad swimmer. I wouldn't have even got a silver medal, to be fair, Steve. So we'll round off there. Thank you to everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure. Swimming. I wish I could swim well. I'm a bad swimmer. But I have got a silver
SCA that
we got last time. So what's in the box? Oh, we can't discuss that. It's the party. For when the gold award comes in, I'll show you. If we get a gold award, I'll show you what's in that box. That's a deal. So go down, vote, do all of that stuff. We'll sign off there. Thank you to everyone for joining us.